We are Saber Sports.
Welcome back to Saber Sports. Shane Fordham, Chris Zellis, Keith Norris Jr., and Peyton Hart are at the desk. With a passer rating of 87.7 with 519 total yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and 1 interception in the past 2 games. Shane, has Brock Purdy proven to be more than just a game manager?
Thanks, Simone, for the smooth intro. But no, Brock Purdy, I think Brock Purdy has proven to be more than a game manager, but I wouldn't put him in the elite company quite yet. I think it'll be hard for him to prove himself as elite as long as he's on the 49ers. You know, he's basically Kelly Rowland on a team full of Beyoncés right now. You know, he's got plenty of star power on the team that overshadow his contribution to the squad. You know, Bobby Brown wasn't Bobby Brown until he left New Edition. You know, prerogative, every little step I take. Yeah. He was hot, but he wasn't the king until he left New Edition. You know, he was part of the group. He was part of the group. So what I'm saying is, as long as Brock Purdy is on this all-star squad of a team, you know how talented this offense is, it's going to be hard for him to sort of create a gap for himself in terms of being in that top 5 overall conversation, elite conversation. But in terms of being more than a game manager, absolutely. You know, he's top 2 in passing touchdowns this year, highest overall passer rating of all time in terms of 49er history, best passer rating overall this year. You know, he's done things to create for his team. He's shown to be a playmaker. So he's more than a game manager. He's not quite elite, but he has shown to be a playmaker.
I don't think we should hold against him the fact that he's surrounded by such great players, because we've seen it time and time again where, you know, you have a quarterback put in this position, he's surrounded by Beyoncés, and they still fold. You know, he has this generational defense who allowed 24 points against them in the first half, but who led them into the charge in the second half and proved to be more than just a game manager. You know, it's 3rd and 15, and he's running for yards. Like, you know, he can't find that pass. Receivers are covered. He's not looking for the check down pass. He's running, and he didn't slide once. So I feel like that game alone, has proven him to be more than just a game manager. But I think that started even in the regular season. We saw it.
So I'll say this. For his expectations, being Mr. Irrelevant, being that the offense was first for Trey Lance, he wasn't even supposed to be in this position. Yes, he is more than what's expected of him, and he has done more. But he still isn't, I feel as though in the top 3 or top 5, he doesn't put that gap between QB play, as he still gets underperformed by other QBs. I still feel as though, Christian McCaffrey, he didn't score in 90% of his games. He averaging, I believe, 2 touchdowns. So, you know, obviously, to what Peyton said, yes, you know, you can't blame him for his weapons, but he hasn't really done much to prove that he's the more than what he should be. But expectations-wise, yes, he is a game manager. I'll say he has done more, and, you know.
Y'all ready for the real answer now?
I think we need a real answer.
Brock Purdy is a great distributor. He does his job. He's an NFL quarterback. He should be able to complete passes on time to his playmakers that are going to go make plays for him. Is he an elite quarterback? No. Is he more than a game manager? No, not to me. One game doesn't prove that you are an elite quarterback talent in this league when on your offense you're not even in the top 3 conversation on the offense. We're not even talking about the offense and the defense. We're talking about just the offense alone. You have Kittle, McCaffrey, Debo, and maybe Ayuk that might come before Brock Purdy. So I think, you know, people kind of using this game against the Lions, you know, they were down 24. You know, he was running the ball. He had 5 rushes for 48 yards. Now, they were big-time runs, no doubt. But at the end of the day, as an NFL quarterback, you're taught to take what the defense gives you. He's not going out there and going out there and saying, okay, the defense plan is to stop me, and I'm still going to go out there and beat them by myself. That's, to me, is what an elite quarterback is. When you look at, like, Lamar Jackson's Texans game, they say, okay, we're going to stop Lamar Jackson. And it didn't matter. He's going to pass, he's going to run. He ran for 150, threw for 150, had 4 touchdowns. That is when the quarterback takes over a game, in a sense. So I feel like Brock Purdy is definitely a good quarterback, but he is a game manager still.
See, Chris, I would agree with you if we haven't already seen the 49ers in this position. You know, when they had Jimmy G, to my knowledge, was never top 5 in passing. He was never leading the league in passer rating. He was never leading the league or second in the league in overall and passing touchdowns. So, I mean, we've seen this team operate with a game manager already. Jimmy G was a game manager. All they needed, you know, especially the year they went to the Super Bowl, all they needed Jimmy G to do was take care of the ball. not turn the ball over. Get the ball to the playmakers. At the time, Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, get the ball to the guys that can create, right? But Brock Purdy, he's doing more than that. He's one of the passing leaders of the league. And Jimmy G was never in the passer rating conversation with Joe Montana and Steve Young, the years they both won Super Bowls. Brock Purdy has a higher passer rating, which is a big deal. He has a higher passer rating than Joe Montana and Steve Young in what was one of their, if not their best career seasons. And I think the only thing for me that would put Brock Purdy in the elite company this season is if he outperforms Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl.
I agree, but you were talking about, this team before the Garoppolo 49ers. That was a different team than what this 49ers team is now. There was no McCaffrey. There was no Ayuk. The whole offensive scheme was different. So Brock Purdy is hands down better than Garoppolo for sure. But Garoppolo is not even in the top 20 conversation on that team. I don't think he couldn't pass. They were run heavy. They were leaning on that run game. So I don't even think you can kind of compare that and give that extra reason for him not being a game manager. Yes, he's playing great, but this is a completely different 49ers team, a completely different scheme. I went back and watched that game, and what they do offensively, you can tell is different what they do now. And it's expected because Brock Purdy's a better passer. He's a little bit more athletic, and they have better weapons. They have McCaffrey now. They have Ayuk, who's come along and been turned into a superstar. Debo's better, Kittle's better, and the offensive line's even a little better to me. So that's why I'm still putting him in that game manager category. Now, if he goes and performs and beats the Chiefs, I'm all for it. He's a top and elite quarterback talent in this league, but he's going to have to show that in the Super Bowl game.
I feel like you guys are taking this elite quarterback term just so hard. Like, the question is he more than a game manager? And I think the fact that he was able to come in with Shanahan and fit what the 49ers were looking for as a quarterback. Quarterback is the hardest position to fit as a coach when you're looking at your offense. So for Purdy to be able to come in and be a coachable player and come back from a season-ending injury on his throwing arm, come back and carry this team to the top of the NFC West and to the Super Bowl, I mean, I feel like that in itself proves to him not to be a game manager.
See, but this is the question, what is a game manager? Because I feel as though being a game manager is just, he's very good at winning games. He can close a game somewhat, but his weapons around him yes, like
He won
imagine,
without Debo.
but look at his running game though,
He's
like
shown that he can do it.
that running game is, mind you, nobody has officially stopped McCaffrey. The only team, the closest team was the Browns. The Browns, that's the only game I believe he did not score in. Every other game, in these last two games, he's averaging 94 yards and 2 touchdowns.
That's just rushing.
And that's just rushing. That's not all purpose. So when you have that, they not one-sided where the Ravens, when they stopped running the ball against the Chiefs, the game, it wasn't written, but it was like, you knew as a Ravens fan, yeah, this game going to be a long game. They stopped that. It ain't been one-dimensional for the 49ers, so it's easier for him to have less throws, less mistakes, and more opportunities. So it looked like he's shining, but reality is less opportunities where he can just make a quick throw. He throwing for 15, 20 passes is less mistakes as well.
And see, that's what I'm saying too, though. It's going to be hard for him to convincingly take that role, in terms of at least making it to elite. I think he's already shown to be more than a game manager the way he's able to create with his legs. That's something playmakers do. Jimmy G, he was a game manager, but he wasn't extending plays with his legs as frequent as Brock Purdy is. And then, and also what I'm saying is, I think that's why I'm reiterating the fact that it's going to be hard for him to sell that point while he's on the 49ers because of how much talent they have.
I feel like that's a fair point, but I think that as far as longevity, the 49ers have an organization where there's coaching staff around to put a scheme in place and execute it well, and I think Brock Purdy is fitting that. You look at the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, he's just stacking up MVPs. There's no championship in sight for them. So for Brock Purdy to go into the 49ers and work with Shanahan and prove himself in his second season, barely 1.5 season, and take your team to the Super Bowl within itself, come on, that's impressive.
No championship though for the Ravens.
I want to hold on that Lamar conversation.
Yeah, like no championship for the Ravens though.
The AFC and NFC are two complete divisions to play in, and that's another thing we'll talk about later. But I'm gonna just hold on that conversation. Let's not compare Lamar to Brock Purdy. I don't think.
Yeah, see, I'm not.
No way you can talk about stacking MVPs and Super. No.
But I think if he wins this Super Bowl today, if he wins the Super Bowl,
close
not
the
saying the 49ers win, I'm saying if he wins. If he goes out there and outperforms Patrick Mahomes like Jalen Hurts did last year, with a better ending, statistically, you got to put him in that top 5.
Yeah.
If he goes out there and gets a better ending, last year, me and my dad, we saw it in person. We weren't crying, but like you could probably see a little moisture of there. It was hot. It's Phoenix though. It was hot. Yeah,
Right,
allergies.
right.
It was hot.
It was sweat.
Right.
Yeah,
You know,
right,
so I'm saying
right.
if Brock Purdy goes out there today and they have a happy ending where it's not as heartbreaking as it was last year, and he has the stats to match it, I feel like Jared Goff this year, he's got to be in top 5 for this season statistically.
Coming up next, the crew talks playoff chances for Lions and Ravens next season. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back to Saber Sports. In the AFC and NFC championship games, we saw the Lions and the Ravens fall one game short of the Super Bowl. Keith, who has a better chance of returning to the conference championship next year? Ravens or Lions?
Thank you, Simone. First, I would like to say happy Black History Month from the crew to y'all. So when I first heard this question about who's likely to go back to the championship, the Ravens or Lions, I'm going to have to say Ravens, obviously. I first thought back to the Lions. That was my first initial answer based off of momentum. They weren't expected to be as hot as what they were. So I would, that was my first thought. But the Ravens held the Chiefs to 0 points. They were one of 4 teams in the second half to hold them to 0 points. Even with the mistakes they did have, they still only lost by 7. And I feel as though out of the 4 teams that did play the Chiefs, they played the Chiefs at the best time with the best Chiefs and the best opportunity and the best playing field. So I feel as though the Ravens will have the best chance. You have seen the Ravens. They done made it to wild card after wild card, divisional. So definitely the Ravens.
See,
With the Ravens
and
lost at home.
The Ravens lost at home. That's the same
and
way.
you
The
actually,
Baltimore Ravens.
you actually just made my point. I know you got to ride with your city. I know you got to ride with. I know you got to ride with B more. I know. Yeah, I know. I knew. I heard the passion. But Lamar's best chance at winning a Super Bowl was this year.
Okay.
The Chiefs couldn't have been more vulnerable than they were this year. They were leading. They led the league in drops this year with 44. Patrick Mahomes didn't have a lot of targets to work with. Now the defense is actually what saved the Chiefs this season. But Lamar, his best chance at winning a Super Bowl was this year. The Chiefs were vulnerable. The Bengals, Burrow was hurt. Josh Allen, he didn't have to see Josh Allen in the playoffs again this year. And the Bills are only going to get better next year. And then don't forget about the Chargers, who just picked up just picked up Jimmy from Michigan.
Justin Herbert?
Just picked up Jimmy from Michigan. Under Jim, who knows a step forward Justin Herbert can take under Jim this offseason. And with the talent they have on both sides of the ball, defense, especially when Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa get back healthy, and then they have Asante Samuel Jr. having a good year last year.
Most of the starters are returning for that same defense. Now, they did lose their DC, Mike. He went to the Seattle Seahawks. He's ready to be the head coach.
Exactly.
But the linebacker coach, Zach Orr, just went up in spot. He done played in the organization. He know the players. He know the city. So it's staying in-house, and he's going to stay there. Lamar Weapons is still going to be there. His offense coordinator, that was his first year with him. So this is going to be his second year with him. They can just build upon. Their biggest obstacle, in my personal opinion, is coming out the AFC North, as far as Joe Burrow. But he's even likely to lose T. Higgins, so I feel as though he's not going to have one-dimensional with Chase. Chase is a great player. But I feel as though they lose Higgins, the Ravens are going to run through them.
But y'all aren't keeping everybody. Some of your most notable free agents this year, Patrick Queen, Justin Madubuike, Jadeveon Clowney. Madubuike and Clowney being you all sack leaders this year, which is what made your defense so dominant.
That is true.
Gus Edwards, your best running back. Ronald Darby, Kyle Van Noy, another pass rusher, hybrid guy. So you guys are losing some key pieces on the defense. And the defense,
we gonna keep a couple.
The defense won you guys a lot of games this year, just like it did the Chiefs. When the offense was still kind of getting things together. So you all are definitely losing some pieces this year. And we're looking at the Lions. The Lions are keeping everybody. Their core group of guys are young. Jahmyr Gibbs, Laporta, 2 Rookie of the Year candidates. Amon-Ra St. Brown, true receiver 1, just as good as any other receiver in the league. Jameson Williams, a dog. Jared Goff is coming back. Their defense is young. Most of them are coming back. And then their only competition in the NFC is the Eagles and maybe the Cowboys, if you want to count them as a true contender, even though they've already proven to be phonies. You know, so, I mean, who knows what type of additions they'll make this offseason. And I'm not going to forget about your Packers. Not going to forget about your Packers. Your Packers, too. But the Lions have less competition in the NFC trying to make it back to the conference ship than the Ravens do, having to see a healthy Burrow, having to see a reinforced Mahomes and Andy Reid combo and Travis Kelce again, having to see a newly formed Chargers team under Jim Harbaugh, and having to see the Bills, a reinforced Bills team. You know, even though they fold in the playoffs, they're still an AFC, at least an AFC championship contender.
And I mean, I agree with Shane. The Lions have the better chance of returning to the conference championship. You talk about keeping the coaching staff. You talking about returning their top players. You talking about returning young talent. We're talking about Jameson Williams. Even though the defense, they had 2 rookies that were amazing. And the linebacker, and you talking about Brian Branch, one of the top nickels in the league as a rookie. When you have young talent that you can build with veterans, that's what gives you that equation to go back and be a top team. When you look at the Ravens, like you said, like Shane said, the Chiefs were hurting this year. Offensively, defensively. Now, defensively, they stepped it up in the playoffs, but this was the Ravens' best chance to me to go win the Super Bowl. When you look at coming out the AFC, like Shane talked about, Burrow, Herbert, Allen, Mahomes, you're going to have to beat those teams consistently, and I don't see Lamar being able to do that. Now, the Lions have to see maybe Green Bay, Dallas, Philly, Tampa. Are those teams consistently going to be able to win with what they have? And I also think a big difference will be Dan Campbell's decision-making in the playoffs. Now, we know he's aggressive. He wants to go for it. But at the end of the day, you have to learn. He's never been in that spot before. This is his first time, and you're going to live by the sword and die by the sword. So if you're going to be aggressive, you're going to die by that sword too. But I think the experience he'll come in with next season, when it gets those big games, he'll understand, okay, I'm going to take 3 here and not go for it. I'm going to punt it here and play field position instead of going for it and giving up field position and giving up points. So I think that would be a big difference and why the Lions can return and win this conference championship coming up this next year.
Right, so my question is, when do you think they're going to go back then?
Let me get her word.
Oh, yeah, my fault. Yeah,
Let me cook.
The Lions are coming out of the NFC North. Like, Jordan Love is our next 3rd generational quarterback. Like, you guys are asleep. They gave the 49ers a run for their money. Everybody thought the 49ers were going to blow us out of that game. We were right there. Goff isn't converting on 4th and 1 in the playoffs. Like, you're given the opportunity to make the play, to be, have your playoff moment, and he wasn't able to do so. I'm going to use your own argument against you. I think this was the Lions' best chance to win the Super Bowl. Like, you're saying this was the Ravens. I think the Lions are right up there. I think the Packers, and I'm not saying this just because I'm a Packer fan, but I think the Packers are going to come in next season and give the Lions a run for their money.
You switched the whole conversation. You didn't even bring up the Ravens.
I think the Lions.
I'm saying,
You brought up past. Okay.
But you're only bringing up one team that the Lions have as competition. That's one team.
In their conference, they're not getting out of their conference. They're not getting out of the NFC North. So they're not even getting to the championship game. They're not even getting there.
So you think Lamar has a better chance of getting through Burrow, getting through Josh, and then getting through Mahomes?
Yes, I think the Lions. Maybe this was their time.
Maybe Herbert
this was their
and
time. It was 4th and 1. This was their moment, and you're not.
The Lions have one problem to fix, and it's their secondary. If they can go out in free agency or in the draft and fix that and complete that secondary, they won't have any weaknesses on that team.
I got one more question. So when do you think the Lions will make it again?
I think they can make it again as early as next year.
Next year?
Don't forget they have one of the best O-lines in football, led by Penei Sewell. They're keeping their running back duo, who is one of the best backfields in the league this year, with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, which gives Jahmyr Gibbs even more of a mentorship, playing under him and Jared Goff. So I feel like it's clear the Lions have a much better chance than the Ravens to make it back.
Easier path. Now, this is the NFL. Every team is good, but let's be clear. AFC is much tougher to come out of than is NFC.
I will give your Packers some credit, though.
I feel like they're scary. They're scary.
I'm going to have to stop you guys right there. After the break, the crew will discuss their X factors for Super Bowl 58. Stay tuned to WTKR News 3. Welcome back to the show. With the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers advancing to the Super Bowl, both sides have tremendous firepower. Who do you think will be the X factor for either side in today's game?
Appreciate you, Simone. I think the biggest X factor, off the rip for both teams is going to be their defense and who can win the turnover battle. When you talk about two high-power offenses, and we're talking about this late in the season, it's Super Bowl, it's the last game. They're going to have familiar. They're going to know what you like to do. It's going to be who can make the other team make the most mistakes. And I think we saw that with the Ravens and Chiefs games. The Ravens were the better team, I think, in that matchup, but the Chiefs made the Ravens make the most mistakes, and that's who won the game. And we talk about the offense. I'm just going to give two quick X factors for each team. So I'm going to Kyle Juszczyk with the 49ers, the fullback. I think this guy makes their offense go. When you watch that game last year, not last year, but the last time they played in the Super Bowl, he had 3 receptions, 40 yards, and a touchdown. All his catches were first down catches. So he caught the ball on third down and moved the chains. I think those are big plays that you need in a game like that. And in the run game, you talk about Kittle, you talk about Trent Williams, but they motion him, they move him from the slot. He blocks corners, he blocks safeties, he blocks DN. He blocks every position on the field, and he makes their offense go. For the Chiefs, I got Rashee Rice, the emerging superstar, the rookie. He's turned it on in the playoffs. He's averaged 7 catches, 74 yards, and he has 1 touchdown in the playoffs. So he's emerging as the receiver one, even with Kelsey, for Mahomes to have somebody to go to when they double Kelsey.
So I'll say this. We know who the X factor is going to be as far as the Chiefs. We know Mahomes is going to do his thing. We know Kelsey. But I feel as though, to take off what Chris said, Chris Jones and the rest of the D-line needs to step up. When you talk about this 49ers, for the last 2 games, McCaffrey has had 2 rushing touchdowns and 94 yards with 18 carries. He's running the ball about 20 times, getting almost 100 yards and scoring twice. If they stop him, who knows? Because the last team to, officially stop him was slow him down was the Browns. And you see how it went. So I feel as though if they can slow him down and get to Brock Purdy, we had the argument about game manager and being a playmaker. If you try to make him become a playmaker, I feel like the Chiefs can seal this game. Now, on the flip side, we all know about McCaffrey, Debo, Kittle. We've been hearing rumors about supposedly Chase Young is supposed to get benched because his effort. I feel as though that D-line needs to step up as well. So to my answer, I would say both D-line, and because you look at Nick Bosa so much, I feel like Chase need to step up, need to man up. He need to be on man time. He need to go in there. He's from the DMV. He need to be on man time. He need to go in there because they not expecting much of him. So he need to go in there and make a play, get Mahomes out the pocket, because the last team to do that was Tampa Bay and Tom Brady. They got him out the pocket. He throwing balls, jumping in the air, and they lost the game. So it's going to be a defensive play for certain defensive line.
Yeah, I think we all can agree, the Super Bowl is going to be a battle of the defenses, and both teams have talents on both sides of the ball. I'm interested to see what Kyle Shanahan is going to do to keep his team motivated. It's a long game, and I think that, the Niners have a lot stacked up against them, so I want to see how Kyle Shanahan is really going to embrace that role and keep his players motivated from the first snap all the way to the last snap. I think we're going to have a crazy game from Mahomes. I think it's so to not be discouraged by that and to keep your head high and still be a leader and keep Purdy encouraged, I think it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, this is hard. I mean, it seems like we're all defensive minded up here. I kind of want to mention Brock Purdy because it's going to take him being more than a game manager, like we said, in order to beat Mahomes in the Super Bowl. It doesn't matter who Mahomes has in the Super Bowl. I thought Jalen Hurts only had to play decent last year to beat Mahomes, and clearly he played one of the best. Yeah, he played one of the best Super Bowl, had one of the best Super Bowl performances of all time, and still couldn't get it done against Mahomes. Now, whether we're going to blame the refs, the refs may have had a little Chiefs poster, little Patrick Mahomes fan card in their pockets, but look. Yeah, but it's definitely going to take Brock Purdy being more than a game manager. But I also do want to highlight some defensive players. GK on the Chiefs, George Karlaftis, he had a clutch sack against Lamar to help close out the AFC Championship. We know they're going to be moving around Chris Jones on many different spots on the D line. Sometimes he's identified as a D tackle, but he's really just a D lineman because he hasn't played a lot of DN this year. And I feel like on that other side, we're going to have to see George have the same effect he had against the Ravens. Being that complimentary pass rush piece to Chris Jones. We know Chris Jones is going to get double teamed. So it's going to open it up even more for GK to make some plays. And then we also have Snead and McDuffie, that cornerback duo. So guys who they can use in coverage, but also guys they can use in the blitz game. Using them as extra pass rushers.
He sealed the game with the punch on Zay Flowers.
Right.
Yeah. So
right.
Definitely.
One thing I think also going to be keen for is how do the 49ers play Mahomes? When you look at the Ravens defense that had success, I think one of the most important groups on this 49ers defense is their linebacking core. When you look at Dre Greenlaw, and Fred Warner.
Right.
When you look at what the Ravens were able to do with Patrick Queen, Roquan Smith, they were able to contain Mahomes. And when he got out the pocket, they was going to make him feel it and make him pay for it. Absolutely. And I think that was one of the reasons why the Ravens had so much success on defense. When you look at teams, because your linebackers have to be able to cover, you got to be able to cover Kelsey, and you got to be able to run after Mahomes.
Yep.
Are your linebackers athletic enough? Do they have the stamina? Can they do that for 4 quarters against the Chiefs? And I think that'd be something to watch for. How do the 49ers game plan with their amazing linebackers for Mahomes?
And one thing about those linebackers, too, they can't afford to give up a big lead in the second half. Right. You know, because you give up that type of lead to Mahomes, 9 times out of 10, 9.5 times out of 10, you're not getting that lead back. Yeah. You know, so this isn't the same. This isn't the Lions team that they're playing in the conference championship. This is Super Bowl Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelsey, Super Bowl Andy Reid, and this star-studded defense that they've had. You know, leading second in the league in terms of points given up. So yeah, they have to start early and they have to set the tone. As soon
The
as
49ers can run this ball. The Chiefs might.
That's what if McCaffrey 20 carries again, if he scores twice and get 100 yards, that's a game.
Okay, guys, before we run out of time, let's hear your hot takes to close out the show.
Marquette's men's basketball team is winning the NCAA tournament this year. All the way.
Okay.
All the way.
All right.
So my hot take is going to go into next season. I'm not believing in the hype of Justin Herbert. I'm not believing in the hype of the Chargers. So my hot take is no matter what Harbaugh does, what Herbert does, and this is just for my cousin because he's going to be watching. It's not going to matter, and it's not going to show up.
My hot take is the biggest all-star snub in the NBA was Trae Young, talking about 20-point double-double, averaging that. With points and assists, definitely the biggest all-star snub.
Okay.
Finish us out.
All right.
Oh,
Close off on I don't know if this is explosive.
Goodness gracious.
But after, and I talked about this on the gram the other day too, after what we've seen this past week in the NBA, I wouldn't be surprised if the Knicks end up becoming the best team in the East before the regular season is over. They got a lot of pieces to trade, you know, ahead of the trade deadline. They're already balling. Jalen Brunson is averaging 27. DiVincenzo's been hooping since Julius Randle's been out, picking up the slack, having like over 20 points, averaging over 20 points the past like 4 games since he's been out. Hardenstein's been owning the boards. Milton Robinson is going to come back. Julius Randle is supposed to come back this year. And who knows? They have enough to pick up another major piece or just some other role players. They got 4 first-round picks in this coming draft. So they definitely have a lot of pieces to make for a push ahead of the trade deadline. So I wouldn't be surprised if they actually end up winning the East, you know, because with the Celtics being inconsistent, likely to fold under Doc, Joel Embiid being out for the entire regular season, and then with the Bucks just being horrible defensively, I wouldn't sleep on the Bucks.
That's all we have for you this week. We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Saber Sports. Be sure to tune in next week with us. You're watching Saber Sports on WTKR News 3.